Hi everyone, welcome back to Dobby Books, and today I'm going to cover what I purchased at my local Friends of the Library sale. And I bought a lot. 20 books. My total came to $23.50. I had a $20 bill. But the lady was very nice, and she told me when I came back the following week, because they know I'm a regular now, I'll pay them the $3.50. So that was very nice of her. Okay, so let's get through this because there's 20 books, and today I guess I was feeling a little down. So I went to Barnes and Noble because I knew which book I wanted to get. I'll tell you about it when I get there. Was a book I didn't know was out in paperback, and now maybe it just recently was released in paperback, but I just didn't even know it existed. So I went to get that book, and of course I came home with more than that. So plus a cold brew and a spinach and feta pretzel. But anyway, that's another story. All right, let's go to the books. So let me start with this stack. This is a stack that one. Okay, so this would be. I'm collecting the Penguin Classics Deluxe editions. And when I find one, I see if it's one that I want, and number two, what condition it's in. And I found one that's actually in good condition, good to very good condition. And this is John Steinbeck's East of Eden. So the condition of this book is good, right? It's obviously been read, it's been used, it's been loved. That's okay. I can live with that. And there was actually a picture of somebody in here. I don't know who, but that's a very nice Porsche. There we go. All right, so I got East of Eden by John Steinbeck. And I also found this little book, The Story of My Life by Helen Keller. I heard about this in school growing up, and it's just not something I even thought about getting, or, it was there, but it was just stuffed in the back of my head. But I'm glad I found it. That's good. I can put this there. And then the next category this isn't it. I'm going to put this over here. The next category, you know how I'm getting more math books that are more of like the older math is more like philosophy. And then I was getting it from my list from either Thomas Aquinas College or St. John's College. So I found a few more. I don't know even know if they're on the list, but let's see. The first one is The Moral Basics of Democratic Capitalism. 3 essays by Irving Kristol, Paul Johnson, and Michael Novak. This is not on either one of those lists, but the title caught my attention. It's a brief, small book. So let's see what my experience is like reading it, how quickly or not I get through it, but I want to know more. The next one I found is The Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. Short little story. But yeah, it's definitely on a list that I have. So I added that. The next one I found was by Hume, An Inquiry Concerning Human Understanding. Cool, huh? And it's in very good condition for a book this old. This one was published 1955. Really? It's in very, very good condition for a book that was published in 1955, really. There we go, David Hume. Next one, The Portable Nietzsche. Now, Nietzsche I find kind of intimidating because I've heard some things. People start talking about his philosophy and things he says. I'm like, oh, wow. That sounds kind of certainly not something I'm familiar with. So when I do get to this, I'm assuming it's going to be careful and steady. But I want to read Nietzsche. So I got this. Nietzsche is on the list. This book, I guess I could say, is good condition. Of course, you have the yellowing. But other than that, structurally, it's in very good condition. It's good. It's good. Next one. Carl Jung, The Portable Jung. I like Carl Jung. I have read some of his writings, and I do have one of his books that I showed on one of my previous videos from someplace, which is his own biography. And I just found him to be a fascinating person. So, and I just want to show you quickly. This is one that I didn't get at the library, but it's one of the books that I did order from, chosen from the list from St. John's College, The Theory of Parallels by Nicholas Lobachevsky. This is a small little book. So this is a new book that I got, not a library one, but that will be another one added to my multi-philosophy section. And then I got this. Now this, I've heard this title before, and I've heard some background about this title, but I can't remember what it was. But it's The American Intellectual Tradition. This is volume 2 from 1865 to the present. This is the 5th edition by Oxford University Press, and it is in excellent condition. Look at this. It's still shiny. There are no frayed edges. The book has not yellowed at all. This is like a brand new book. It cost me $1.50. And I don't know where volume 1 is. I didn't see it there at the library. And it's got various authors: Albert Einstein, Herbert Marcuse, John Courtney Murray, let's see, Martin Luther King Jr., Jane Addams, Randolph Bourne, William James, Charles Pierce. It just goes through, I guess these are a collection of essays. So we have so many books to go through. I was going to grab something from the preface to read for you, but I don't want to take everyone's time. And a book I found that I kept seeing through various trips, and I finally decided today to get it because it is informational and it's important, and it's part of psychological history and learning. And look at the tabs on this. So the person who read this, obviously, it is A Natural History of Homosexuality by Francis Mark Mondamore. And this book is also, this is in very good condition. I wouldn't say the pages are even really faded. Look at that. It's in great condition. The spine hasn't even broken. It doesn't have a lot of, I don't see any markings in it. But this is great because it goes through topics such as sexual histories, sexual biology, sexual identities, and sexual politics. Really important topics to know and to be better informed about. So I'm glad I got this. This is good. The Natural History of Homosexuality. Paperback. Then, remember how we've been doing poetry back and forth between booktubers? I've been enjoying that. And just quite frankly, my knowledge of poetry is just abysmal. Really, it's not something that I, as an English major, have really had a lot of exposure to, and that sounds so strange, but that's the way it is. And although I've gone to poetry readings and met some poets because we do have those presentations in our English department, the teaching-wise, exposure-wise, has not been a lot for me. So who the hell knows where I was when I was in school? My brain wasn't there, obviously. My body was, but my brain wasn't. But other than that, I can't tell you much. Whether it's that I wasn't paying attention or whether this was something that in my own academic upbringing simply wasn't really well provided for me. So anyway, I decided to look for something on poetry while I was there. And of course, not knowing which poet to choose or what have you, I just decided I would figure it out when I got there. So I found two things. This one first is by Glencoe McGraw-Hill. So it's an academic press. And it's called Reading Poetry, an anthology of poems. I figure that's a good start, right? Because it's got an anthology of poems. So I don't know. Oh, and what I like about this is because it's educational, it covers topics as it presents each set of poems. So the first one is the introduction, reading and responding. And then it lists some poets, Robert Frost, Raymond Carver. Under the act of reading, Emily Dickinson, Adrienne Rich. And then chapter 2, elements of poetry. So they have speaker and situation, and they present Langston Hughes, A.E. Housman. Then diction and imagery, John Updike, Robert Browning. Figures of speech and symbolism, Emily Dickinson, William Shakespeare. There's others, I'm just naming a couple. Then allusion and irony, William Blake, Stephen Crane. Syntax and structure, E.E. Cummings, Langston Hughes. And what's the next? Rhythm and meter, County Cullen, Emily Dickinson. Sound and sense, again, Emily Dickinson and another author. And application, Walt Whitman. Under part 2, it's simply the anthology of poems, and they have, it looks like they may be going, maybe not chronologically. They have Sappho. I'm going to just choose some names for you. John Skelton, Sir Philip Sidney, a name I'm going to mutilate. Let me see, Robert Southwell, of course Shakespeare, John Donne, Robert Herrick, William Blake, Robert Burns, Samuel Taylor Coleridge, John Keats. Wow, it just keeps going. Several pages onwards. This is a huge anthology, of all these authors. An index of first lines. Okay, interesting. So this is Reading Poetry, an anthology of poems by Glencoe McGraw-Hill. This particular one is the first edition published in 1989. And then I found something else on poetry. This is a big wow. Like this book, not only is it big, as far as like, not like thick big, but wider big. It's in absolutely excellent condition, and it comes with 3 audio CDs because the poets mentioned in this book are reading their own poetry. Called Poetry Speaks. Hear great poets read their work from Tennyson to Plath. This is cool. And I bought it anyway. You know why? Because I don't even know if I have a CD player. I was asking my husband this morning, and they had to think about it. Like, no, so we don't. So my next project would be to find a CD player. I'd like to listen to the poets read their own poetry. I wonder if there's a version of this that has downloadable recitations. I don't know, but we'll see. But if not, I'll ask my brother and my sister if they happen to have a CD player. Let's see where we go from there. Great book. Look, it's in just wonderful condition. Absolutely wonderful condition. And it was, how much was, I'm going to guess this was $1. Yeah, this was $1.50. $1.50. And the original price on this was $49.95. And it was published when? 2001. It was $50 back then. Wow. So this was a phenomenal deal. Okay. Now, 2 books that were new, that were ones I ordered. Not this one. This one. This is another new book that I got in the mail. And I got this because of Steve Donahue. It's one of the books he brought up. I don't know if it's if it was part of the 100 best books. But something. But what he mentioned about it, I thought, you know what? I think I want to read this. And it is the American political tradition. And the men who made it. And I want to go into it, but I'm not going to because it's a lot of books I have to cover, and I don't want to take up crazy time. Okay, next book I got. And I noticed I have this huge pile in the center and it's mostly politics and current events. So that tells me where my mind is leaning right now. Big surprise, right? Okay, so the first one is what the Anti-Federalists were for, the political thought of the opponents of the Constitution. Now, this is an interesting perspective because, as the author says, basically, it's important that we do listen to the perspective that the Anti-Federalists were coming from, because some of the input that they had to give was influential in its own way. And if recalling correctly, that the author was saying some of their points were instrumental in making certain adjustments to our Constitution. So it's good to understand both sides, and that's what I liked about this. And because it's not this, Mongo book, it was a short read that I could get through, either from, cover to cover, or when I just want to look up something in particular. The next one I got, nope, let's skip that one towards the end. And this I have to do in order. This is a trilogy that was originally published. Let me look very quickly. First publication, first printing, okay, 1957. I think this might have been earlier. But this is a trilogy by Arthur M. Schlesinger Jr., and it was the Roosevelt trilogy. I call it the Roosevelt. I think there's a different name for it. And the first one in the series is The Crisis of the Old Order, talking about the political and economic situation of the United States before the New Deal. So it covers the years 1919 to 1933. Then in the second book, The Coming of the New Deal, expands on what it was, what it changed, and this covered from 1959. This was published. It's not telling me, obviously, after 1933. The Crisis. Let me see. No, but these are old books. Look at when they had the red pages. Isn't that interesting? I think this is. My father had some books like this that had the sprayed edges, but only on one side. There's a third one, and I looked it up and I forgot what the name of it now is. But there are three in this series: The Crisis of the Old Order, The Coming of the New Deal, and I'm looking for book 3. So when I go back to the library, let's see how lucky I get at finding it. And then what I also found was another book on the same topic, but now this is coming from a perspective several decades on down the line, and it is The New Deal in Modern History by Michael Heltzik, published in 2011. So I like that. This allows us to go back and, to look at what was originally set up, the hopes of that new legislation, and now, several decades down the line, we're seeing how it really did work out or not. So I got that. The next one I found is Book Notes, Stories from American History, Leading Historians on the Events that Shaped Our Country. And it has various authors writing about those different events, their perspectives on it, etc. So that's a good thing to have. I like getting all the different sides. I like reading different perspectives and learning about thoughts that, otherwise I would not have considered. And I think that's good to do. I think it expands our horizons. This one really got my attention. I'll tell you why. It's entitled The Nazi Seizure of Power, The Experience of a Single German Town, 1930 to 1935 by William Sheridan Allen. And what really caught my eye on this one was it focused on one town, and this is when the fascism was setting in Germany, and it's examining how you think reasonably intelligent people could fall for this. And we're asking ourselves that same question today, aren't we, with our political situation here in the United States? How could people truly believe this? How could people be so blind to this, and on and on and on? And this was asking the same questions. about a situation that happened early in the 20th century. And I want to know. I want to read this and see what went on, and just kind of reflect on how much of that applies to what's going on today. I really want to read this very soon, very, very soon. Next one. This is one that kept staring at me for like a zillion years every time I went there, and I kept ignoring it, but finally, yesterday I just gave up and said, all right, what the heck? Constantine's Sword, the Church and the Jews, James Carroll. No. Don't shy away from your family history. Don't shy away from your religious history. Don't shy away from it. Read it, confront it, process it. And this covers the dark side of the church history, especially when it came to their treatment of the Jews. And it's something that's important to know. So I'm going to read it. That was my library haul. And today, because I was feeling a little down, I decided to make my run over to Barnes & Noble. On my Instagram account, you'll see I made a little posting on that set to music so you could see what my basic thought process was at the end of it. But let me show you those really quick. Definitely not as many books. The first one I got, I've already started reading. I saw this when I walked in. One of the display tables, this was the display table in the front with all these paperbacks. And the title, The Librarianist, a novel. Interesting. And this is by Patrick DeWitt. And this is what it's about. And this is why I want to read it. Bob Comet is a retired librarian passing his solitary days surrounded by books and small comforts. Hoping to fill the void he's known since retiring, he begins volunteering at a senior center. Here, following a happenstance brush with a painful complication from his past, the events of his life and the details of his character are revealed. Behind Bob's straight man facade is the story of an unhappy child's runaway adventure, of true love won and stolen away, of the purpose and pride found in the librarian's vocation, and of the pleasures of a life lived to the side of the masses. I loved it. I thought this is going to be a great read. And it had me laughing from the beginning. It has a very lighthearted, yet matter-of-fact approach as it opens up. And I could see this playing out in my head like a movie. It's delightful. It's a great book, so I think I'm going to enjoy this. Then, my next one, of course, I'm trying to purchase more philosophy texts. I got Utopia by Thomas More. It's a cute cover. I've never seen a cover like this. And this is published by Yale University Press. Okay. And next one. I wanted to add another book to my Shakespeare collection, and I'm leaning more towards right now the Folger Shakespeare Library. So since I have a lot of tragedies, romance, etc., I'm trying to get more of the histories. So I have Julius Caesar, and the next one I got was Richard II. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but Folger Library has the smaller books, and then they have these bigger ones, and I like the bigger ones. These are updated editions, and I just like the fact that there's just more room. I don't like the little ones. I prefer bigger books. So I added this to my collection, as well as this is Shakespeare by Emma Smith. And in this it says, was Shakespeare a timeless prophet, a verbal innovator, a technical genius, a man who encapsulated the human condition as no one else has? Well, sort of. But according to Emma Smith, so much of what we are taught about Shakespeare is either not exactly true or not important. She argues that it is precisely the bard's inconsistencies and ambiguities that fuel his enduring relevance and power. Smith brings us into the world Shakespeare inhabited as he emulated his blockbuster rivals and flirted with dangerous issues of succession politics, religious upheaval, and technological change. Time and again, Shakespeare poses awkward questions rather than offering simple answers, always implicating us in working out their significance. Smith writes in strikingly modern ways about individual agency, privacy, politics, celebrity, and sex. She pulls Shakespeare down from his high pedestal and encourages us to argue with and about his works rather than revere them. That's what makes them matter. What a great POV. So this is written Emma Smith, and what's the press? Vintage Books, a division of Penguin Random House. Okay, and one more to go. This is the one that I didn't know, number one, that it existed. I thought this author was still working on it. It was yet to be published, and then it was going to be in hardback, and then eventually in paperback, only to find out it's in paperback. When did this happen? And I thought it looks like it came out in 2023. How did I miss that? 2023. The Iliad of Homer by Emily Wilson. I have the Odyssey, and I thought, okay, and I looked up if she had translated the Iliad, and I didn't see it. It was something that was in the works. This is from W.W. Norton, and it says copyright 2023. This is a first edition, first print. So maybe it recently came out in paperback from having been in hardback. I don't know. Where was my brain? I don't know. Maybe I've been looking at the hardback and thinking to myself, let me wait until it comes out in paperback. I don't know. But I was surprised earlier today to find that this was in paperback. And you know how I found out? Aaron Facer. I saw it on his page. I was like, oh my gosh. And that's why I ran out today to go get it at Barnes & Noble. This is the book that I meant to get at Barnes & Noble. Just this. But of course I came home with a few other books, the few that I just showed you now. And there's one more to go. This one, I have to say, has been tapping on my shoulder for a long time. It's been telling me, you want to read this. This is something you are interested in. The only reason you don't want to buy it is because you don't want to spend the money on the paperback. I mean, you don't want to spend the money on the hardback, and you're waiting for it to come out in paperback, and maybe you could find it at the library for less, and on and on and on. But you know what? Today I finally said, you don't feel so great today. Make yourself happy. Spend $30 and buy it. So I did. Remembering Peasants, A Personal History of a Vanished World by Patrick Joyce. This is interesting. And when you know, because I like history, as you know, the older histories have always involved the great, famous, the wealthy, and on and on and on. But not a lot of people really addressed your everyday person until 20th century. And I think of Charles Dickens' books, that was the 19th century, and that was literature, but yet he was still addressing those that were not mentioned in history. And that the social history is a fairly new discipline. But, you know, I think it's important to know that we're all making history, right? It's not just the famous or the wealthy or the powerful, but everyday people as well are also making history and contributing to it. The history of peasants is a vital and fascinating line in history, and it's something that I want to get to know more about. There's also another book that was published a while back. I think it was something, The Making of the English Working Class. I'm trying to find a good edition on that. I've been looking on eBay. I'm not too satisfied with the price listings just yet, but that's another book along the same lines that I want to add to my history collection. And that's it. The bag's empty. That's everything, everybody. Thank you for spending time with me today. And if you enjoyed this, please press the like and subscribe button. The more the merrier. Thanks again, everybody. Bye-bye.